Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in this fine world. We're here with another edition of WOWSA Live with a special guest from Germany and our host, Ned Denison. Ned?
Hello, everyone. I'm the chairperson of the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame. We have one of our honorees with us today, Britta Kamrau. Britta, please say hello to everyone.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here with you. Thank you.
You came from Rostock in Germany, which looking back on the history books, you're not the only superstar from this one place. What was it about that city that became this center of excellence?
Well, I guess it was especially my coach, of course. I mean, we had in the south of Germany, we had Christoph Wandrat. She started like with the open water in Germany, and then my later teammate from my club, Peggy Büchse, she started doing open water together with my coach, and she was very successful from the beginning. So they started to build this group of open water swimmers up, and my coach did a very, very good job for a lot of years, raising more and more open water swimmers who were successful.
Many of the professional swimmers start immediately at racing and then later do some epic swims. You did it the other way around. In 1996, you did this tremendous relay, 157 kilometers across the Baltic Sea. How did that all happen? Was it your coach? Was it some of your teammates? Who set all of this up? Whose idea was it?
Well, I don't actually remember whose idea it was, but it had something to do with the sponsor of our club. We had a sponsor which was a ferry line, and they have ferries from my hometown to Sweden to Denmark. So I actually did 3 relays. The first one you were talking about was one we did for the Guinness Book of Records. It was the first relay we did like that. It was, one of the ferry lines, and then. I don't actually remember the exact years, but like 2 years later, we did another relay doing another ferry line, and another 2 years, again, another one. So it was something we had the idea of because of our sponsor, which of course was supporting us doing those relays as well.
At some point, you became one of the swimmers in the European Championships in 1997. Tell us about the year or two before that. Were you moving away from the pool steadily? Did you continue the pool? How did this happen for you?
Well, in my times, I started quite young doing open water swimming. It was more. I think it was later more famous to young swimmers as well, because then they were young. There were, European Championships and World Championships for the youth, for the juniors. It didn't exist in my time. So because of all those good swimmers in my club, I started to do a little bit of open water swimming besides the pool swimming. I always continued in the pool, but wasn't as successful as I would wish for. I was always, being really good in training, but when the competition would come up, I did more or less the same times that I did in training. So that, of course, was a little bit frustrating for me. So I started with open water swimming, and I think I was, I don't know, maybe 16 when I did my first 5K at the German Championships. And I won a bronze medal, so I thought, hey, maybe this might be something for me as well. And then when I was 17, I did the first time 25K in the German Championships and won the bronze medal as well. So, of course, I started to like the sport. I mean, I already trained for 25K, so you have to like the sport to do that. But of course, it's always a lot easier if you are successful, and that's how I got into open water swimming. But I never really, we always did German nationals in the pool at the same, not at the same time, of course, but besides the open water swimming, we always tried to do pool competitions. Not only because we wanted to see how we are going in the pool as well, but also because, of course, it gives you a lot of speed you will need in the open water swimming too if you do competitions in the pool and do the sprint races of 800 or 1500 meters. So for quite a long time, I tried to do both.
And how important that you mentioned the bronze in the 5K and the bronze in the 25K. How important was that for your confidence starting your open water career?
Well, as I said, I was really young, so I didn't really, of course, I loved very much to win those medals, but since I was so young, I always had the feeling I have all the future still in front of me. So I think even if I wouldn't have won those medals in my first editions at the German Championships, it wouldn't have made much difference for what was coming after that. But of course, it made it a lot easier to, go on with the training, and especially do those lots of kilometers you need to do for the training in open water swimming. Of course, it gave me confidence. I cannot deny that. But as I said, I always thought, I have so many years ahead of me, and I knew that in open water swimming, experience plays a big role, and the kilometers you do in the training over the years, of course, they will help. So it was a calm situation for me.
Some people won't be familiar with parts of your career, so let me help them understand that. In the World Championships from 2002 to 2007, you won 10 medals, 4 gold, from 5K to 25K. You also won the FINA World Cup Series. You were first in 2003 and 2006, second in 99, 2001, 2002, 2004, 2005. And altogether, you had 78 podium finishes in races, and 24 were first. Wow. Wow. Tell us about some of the best moments in that period for you.
Well, it's difficult to pick just a few. I think like the first biggest success for me, which really gave me the confidence you were talking earlier about, were my 2 bronze medals at the European Championships in 1999 in Istanbul, because that was like the first time for me being really internationally on the podium with a lot of big competitors. Actually, in those times, the difference between European Championships and World Championships was not that big, because it was usually the Europeans that were on the podium at the World Championships as well. Of course, always mixing up with a bit of Australians or swimmers from the United States. But that was really a big success for me, which gave me a lot of confidence, saying, okay, I can be in the top of the world in open water swimming. So those 2 medals were very important to me. I always loved doing the World Cup. Traveling around, having so many nice and traditional races in Argentina, in Atlantic City in the United States, in Canada, also in Europe. I enjoyed every race we did, even if the outcome wasn't that good. I loved being in the series and having those competitions throughout the year, which of course gives you a lot of motivation for the training in between. Of course, every gold medal at World Championships is something very, very special, especially the first one. I wasn't counting on my first gold medal in 2002 in the 10K. Until then, that time I had already competed in 3 World Championships. Yes, 3 World Championships, and never won a medal. So when I got into that 10K race, I said, now I really, really want that medal. And it was the gold medal. So that, of course, was amazing. And also, which was a very, very special competition for me, was the European Championships 2004 in Madrid, where I won the 5, 10, and 25K. So there was nothing else I could do, which of course was very special too.
Does it remain as a special city for you?
Well, not as much the city, because our competition, it was in a lake very far outside of Madrid, a very cold lake. It was actually very difficult because we had to swim in a wetsuit, which was an exception out of the rules. But if it wouldn't have been possible with the wetsuits, we wouldn't have been able to do the European Championships, to do any race, because I remember the first day when we arrived, the water was 10.8 degrees. Ooh. So not really something you like to race in. And then when the competition started, it would go up to 13, 14 degrees, which is still cold, but especially for me, I always hated cold water. So for me, it was a really good thing we could swim in the wetsuits, and that's what I most connect to those European Championships, of course.
Many of our honorees have a special memory of their first competition in Canada, with everyone on holiday. What do you remember the first event you did in the Canadian summer? What your impressions were?
I don't really remember which was. I was many years in Canada, and I know those races have a big tradition. They are very, very important to so many people. They were important to me. The organization of those races there, the organizers, they were incredible. Really the best organized races we had at those times, but it was cold water, you know, for me. It was always a big fight with the cold water. Everything that was less than 20 degrees was almost impossible for me. I tried to train for it, but I wasn't very successful in it. So my feeling about the competitions in Canada were always connected to my fear of the cold water, and they were actually the only races I would ever give up. I don't know how many times I competed in Roberval in Lac Saint-Jean. It was, I don't know, maybe I swam there 5-6 times, and I think I didn't arrive even in half of those times.
So the party wasn't a big thing for you. It was fear of the cold.
It was, yes. I would have loved Canada with 5 degrees more in the water.
And many people have some stories about Atlantic City and getting surprised by the currents. What do you remember about your Atlantic City experiences?
Atlantic City actually was my favorite race besides the Santa Fe Corona in Argentina. Those 2 races were the 2 I loved most. I loved Atlantic City. I mean, especially that, you know, that you have the currents. It's not like, I understand why we swim laps today, why there's the need for swimming laps, but of course it's a very, very different race in Atlantic City, going first those 3 hours out into the ocean and then getting into the back bay, having your own rowing boat. And for a long time, Atlantic City was the only race where we would still swim, or every swimmer would still swim on its own, you know, not having this pack swimming. When I started, we still had the 3-meter rule, you know, where around yourself you had to have the 3 meters, and no other swimmer was allowed to get into that circle or to draft on you. So Atlantic City, because of the rowing boats and sticking to your rowing boat, drafting on it, was for a long time the only race even after 2000, where every swimmer could swim on its own. And for me, that was, you know, the real competition. You know, you start the race and you swim your 30, 34, 37K. And who's best in the end, who's best during all the course is the one who will be winning, and not only the ones who draft very good and have a good final sprint. So I always loved that very much about that race. And of course, because it's very special with the people in the back bay being there around you, very different side. You have swimming, first the ocean, then the back bay with different, all this different moments and houses next to the back bay. Also my family, we would always stay private in our host families in Atlantic City. I'm still very connected to my family, my host family in Atlantic City. Until today, we're still friends. So that is, of course, was a very nice part about it too.
And in those years when you were one of the top swimmers, who were your toughest competitors?
Well, at the beginning, I said when I started, I was with Peggy in the same group. We were teammates. I was the young one. She was 7 years older. So she, of course, was always the swimmer I would look up to most. in training every day. It was a perfect thing for me to be able to be training with the best in the world, and learn so much from her in training, in competitions, and traveling even. And then, of course, my biggest competitors were Edith van Dijk from the Netherlands, and Angela Maurer from Germany. So I think in the whole, just looking at, World Cups and World Championships, European Championships, those were the ones that would do always the same competitions as me, and therefore would be the most important competitors.
Okay. You also have been giving back to the sport in the last few years, first of all on the Technical Open Water Swimming Committee. Tell us a little bit about the athlete's role on that, how important it is, and basically what did you learn from that view of the sport?
Well, when I stopped in 2009, I got into the FINA Athletes Committee as well. Peter Stoichev, he was the one. He was already on the committee, and he was the one getting me into it too, because he said we need a woman. We need Britta as well to to do what we have to do for the athletes in the sport. And I have to say that from the start on, we were very well received. Also in the TOSC, until today, they very much give importance to the athlete's point of view. They would always turn to me or Peter before, asking for our opinions, even in those times where we didn't actually have a formal seat on the committee, on the TOSC. And I know they appreciate our opinion very much. And there were many moments where we actually could turn something around, which from our point of view was better for the athletes, or even give them an idea how the athlete, how it feels for an athlete, what it means for an athlete. So it's actually been a really positive experience I have had in that committee until today. Of course, a lot of things are politics. There's no way around that. You get, of course, also a very different perspective when you switch the views from being an athlete, getting into the role of the committees. A lot of times the committee members would want to do so much more for the athletes, but there are limits from any way, any side. But on the whole, I can say that it was a good experience for me to see that there are actually a lot of people really working for the sport, really having the athletes in mind, and trying to do the sport better. And I of course try to do the same.
And you have a long involvement now in the German Swimming Association. Tell us about your experiences and what you're currently doing.
Well, actually, I haven't done so many things in the German Swimming Federation. It was more in FINA with the Athletes Committee and the TOSC. Just now in the last year, I started to do a little bit for the German Swimming Federation, and I am currently in the court of arbitration of the German Federation. So this is kind of a new role for me. I was asked last year if I would do it, and I said yes. It's, of course, as you say, you try to give something back for the sport. You want to do something, and at the same time, it's something that widens my own horizon. So I'm happy to do it, and have a little bit more challenges of a different type, but being still connected to the sport.
I'm only familiar with some of the doping cases that go to Switzerland. What kind of cases do you get in the German swimming court of arbitration?
Yeah, not so much the doping cases, because there are doping panels and you have different ways for those issues. It can be of any kind. The good thing about the Court of Arbitration is I only get cases that already went through the other courts, which are in the first or second instance. So it's not that much until now coming up there, but it can be anything, you know. It can have to do with rules in water polo, or with points giving in a game, or swimmer's disqualification in some competition. It can be very, very, very different, and which makes it interesting, of course, too.
I guess my final question to you is, unfortunately for you, the Olympics 10K was not in your period. What do you think when you watch the Olympics today? Do you let your mind wander and imagine you're out there?
Not that much. I mean, when I stopped swimming, I was happy to stop swimming. I loved swimming, but it was really okay until that moment when I did it. And I had so many things coming up in my life after I stopped swimming, you know, having a family, having my job, which is everything. All of it makes me very happy and fills my time. So I don't really have anything to complain about. And I'm happy with everything I did in my sports career. So, of course, I would have liked to be in the Olympic Games, of course. It's something missing, but it's not something that it's really hurting me.
Britta, thank you very, very much for your time today. We wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. To you too. Thank you.